I had no idea that the truth would be so much worse than anything I could have imagined. That's when I decided I needed to find out who Marcus really was.
Up. The first time I saw him, I was coming home from school and found this guy, maybe in his early 20s, cleaning our kitchen.
And if that was true, then what did that make my mom, who claimed to be texting with him and working with him every day, completely alone with whatever this thing was? But I was starting to suspect that Marcus wasn't human at all.
But then, little things started bothering me. Like how I never saw him arrive in the morning or leave at night. Something was very wrong with our perfect houseboy, and I was going to find out what. I had no idea how much I was going to regret that decision. Mom's perfect helper. I swear on help. I dropped it, but it kept bugging me. Over the next week, I started paying more attention to Marcus and the whole situation. That's when I noticed other weird things. First, he never ate anything, ever. Mom would offer him food, and he'd always say he'd already eaten or he wasn't hungry. I started leaving snacks out on the counter to see if he'd take them when I wasn't around. They were never touched. Never looked exhausted or even slightly worn out. Third, and this was the creepiest thing, I never heard him walking around the house. Our floors are old and creaky. You can't take a step anywhere without making noise. But Marcus moved through the house like he was floating. Complete silence. I started testing this by dropping things when I knew he was nearby, just to see if he'd react or if I could catch a glimpse of him moving. But every time I tried, he'd just appear in the room I was in, like he'd been there the whole time. "Did you drop something, Sarah?" he'd ask with that same perfect smile. The way he said my name always made my skin usually head home. He stopped dusting and looked at me with those pale blue eyes. For a second, his perfect smile faltered, and I saw something else in his expression, something cold and empty that made my blood freeze. "I don't really have a set schedule, Sarah. I just work until everything's done." "But where do you live? How do you get here?" The smile came back, but it looked forced now. "I live nearby, very nearby. Don't worry about me. I'm exactly where I need to be."
This is things, but I realized I'd never actually seen him with any personal belongings. No backpack, no jacket, no keys, nothing. It was like he appeared each morning with just the clothes on his back. I searched the house for any sign that Marcus was actually a real person who existed outside of our home. No extra toothbrush in the bathrooms, no personal items anywhere, no jacket hung up in the closet. It was like he was a ghost who only materialized when he was working. Then I remembered something. When my mom first told me about hiring Marcus, she mentioned getting his information from an agency. I went through her home office looking for any paperwork or contact information. I found a folder labeled House References available on request. Agency, Premier Home Services. At the bottom was a note in my mom's handwriting. Recommended by colleague, excellent references, start date, immediate. I called Premier Home Services, but the automated message said the number was no longer in service. I tried looking them up online, but there was no website, no listings, nothing. It was like the agency had never existed. Getting more frustrated and scared, I decided to take a picture of Mark and had detailed discussions about housework. I started keeping a journal of all the weird things I noticed about Marcus. The list grew longer every day. Never saw him arrive or leave. No personal belongings anywhere. Can't take a clear photo of him. Moves without making noise. Never eats or drinks. Works for hours without breaks. Phone number doesn't work. Hiring agency doesn't exist. Mom acts strange when I ask questions about him. Reading over the list, I realized how crazy it all sounded. But I wasn't crazy. I knew what I was seeing and experiencing. Something was very wrong with Marcus, and somehow my mom was involved. The thought that my mom might be lying, or if something was wrong with her too, I couldn't finish that thought. I couldn't handle the possibility that I was completely alone with whatever this thing was. But I was starting to suspect that Marcus wasn't human at all. And if that was true, then what did that make my mom, who claimed to be texting with him and working with him every day? That's when I decided I needed to find out who Marcus really was. Or more importantly, I needed to find out if he was real at all. I had no idea that the truth would be so much worse than anything I could have imagined.
Chapter 3. Finding the Obituary.
Happened. The spirit they sent was angry, violent. He died in a car accident and was furious about being pulled back. He started breaking things, scaring you at night. You don't remember because you were so young, but you stopped sleeping for weeks. You kept saying there was a scary man in your room. I do remember that. I remember being terrified to sleep, remember crying every night about the angry man who watched me. Mom had told me it was just nightmares from grief over losing Dad. How many have there been? Including Marcus? 5. 5 dead people had been trapped in our house over the last 4 years. 5 spirits bound to serve us because my mother couldn't handle being a normal single parent. What happened to the others? They moved on, eventually, once they felt they'd fulfilled their purpose. How do you know they moved on? How do you know they didn't just disappear? Mom's silence was terrifying. Oh my God, Mom, what if they didn't move on? What if they're still here, just invisible? That's not how it works. But she didn't sound convinced. I thought about the vacuum running in the basement when Marcus wasn't there. I thought about the cold spots I sometimes felt in the house, the sounds at night that Mom always dismissed as the house settling. Where are they? I whispered. Before Mom could answer, we both heard Marcus's voice from the living room. Sarah, could you come here for a moment? I need to show you something. His voice sounded different, less smooth, less perfect. There was something urgent in it, something almost afraid. Mom and I looked at each other, and I saw my own terror reflected in her eyes. Don't go, she whispered. But I was already walking toward the living room, drawn by something I couldn't resist. I needed to see Marcus now that I knew the truth. I needed to look at him with the knowledge that he was dead and see if I could tell the difference. What I found in the living room changed everything. Marcus was standing in the center of the room, but he wasn't alone. There were 4 other people with him, 4 other people who looked just as solid and real as he did, but whose eyes held the same cold emptiness. Sarah, Marcus said, and his perfect smile was completely gone. I'd like you to meet the others. We've been waiting